What is up, Cowboys Nation? Your boy Mike Tag here, hanging out in the Cowboys cave, just reminiscing and appreciating. You heard the news, Tyron Smith hanging up the cleats, signing his one-day contract with the Cowboys, going to retire a Cowboy like he should. So, want to talk about the Great Wall. And before we get rolling, man, if you are new to this channel, the Cowboys Cave, make sure you subscribe, hit that thumbs up, and also give me a comment. Give me some of your memories of the Great Wall. Give me some of your thoughts about the Great Wall. Where did they rank in history amongst the NFL all-time great offensive lines? Were they missing a little bit? I mean, no Super Bowls, which we'll get into. How do they rank with the OG Great Wall of the Cowboys of the 90s? So, looking at it, you can't say enough things about those three guys that I'm looking up to. This is one of the prized possessions I have in my cave. All three of them signed photo with the Great Wall inscription as something that's, it'll be in this cave for as long as I'm here. So definitely great memories. And you look at them and how great they were together. And then obviously as years went by, the injuries to Travis, or the illness, I should say, shortened his career. And then Tyron last year, which I wish he didn't. I wish he retired last year. But he goes out and plays 1 year with the Jets. Zach is the lone of the three that retired a Dallas Cowboy. But, injuries got the best of him. But you think about it, 30 years of football combined between those three offensive linemen, 22 Pro Bowls combined, 10 All-Pros combined. Two of the three were all decade for the 2010, the 2010s, I should say, decade. And Travis would have been had it not been for some injuries. But you think about them and where they are in history. Obviously, two of them, surefire Hall of Famers. They'll be wearing a gold jacket. Again, Travis, it's unfortunate. His career got cut a little bit short due to illness. But, for them together, that's how we remember them, right? We remember that group together and, some of the great memories, the three of them. Obviously, DeMarco Murray in that special year he had. You had a little bit of Zeke, and then you had DeMarco, Darren McFadden, but Marion greatness is the first thing I think about when I think about all of them. And you look at Zach Martin, and all of them. It's a little unique, Cowboys history. Tyron was one of the highest draft picks for an offensive lineman in Cowboys history. And then you had Zach Martin, who, if Jerry, if you listen to the history, if Jerry had his way, Johnny Manziel would have been the quarterback of the Cowboys at that time. And then you also look at Travis Frederick and the Cowboys organization and their scouts and everything else were just crucified for taking Travis Frederick in the first round, late in the first round. Why, they said he's a third round grade. Well, look at the career he had and look at the impact he had on that team. I would say pretty damn good pick. But where do they rank in history with the Cowboys? I mean, obviously as a collective unit, they're there. You're going to have the two Hall of Famers. But you think about the Cowboys in the 90s and you think about this offensive line, and if you followed my channel and I had, Big Nasty Kevin Gogan on, and we kind of talked about it and had other players from that 90s team and talked about it. The offensive line was, in the 90s, there were no first-round draft picks. There were no highly blue-chip touted guys. These were guys that really some teams didn't want. They were undrafted. Some bounced around. Mark Tuinei was drafted as a defensive tackle, and then they converted him to an offensive lineman. Kevin Gogan was a 7th-round draft pick. You had John Giesick, another late-round draft pick. Eric Williams, 3rd-round draft pick. Stepnoski, I believe, was a 2nd-round draft pick. If my memory's right, I always get him and Moose flipped between 2nd and 3rd, but I'm pretty sure he was a 2nd-round, undersized, offensive linemen. And what did they do is, that group really became the OG, the only Great Wall that you really know. 3 Super Bowl championships. That group had 2, and then obviously you brought in Larry Allen, and he gets that last one, he gets that 3rd Super Bowl, but the core group, had the 2. So you had just a collection of talent, but what made them special was really they came up together. They had something to prove. They all had an edge. They were unwanted. And, that team was special. And that offensive line was special. And they had Emmitt Smith, who was more than special. And you had Troy Aikman, and obviously you had Emmitt Smith or Michael Irvin. And it was just a group of guys that love to play the game. And I'm not saying that this group didn't love to play the game, but as a team, you wonder how the offensive lines mesh, and do you really need this great offensive line? Because you can go down, down the line of this history, and this could be one of the greatest offensive lines of all time, just because of those 3. I mean, obviously you mixed in a few other guys here and there, but that core 3. A collection of, I don't know if you have 3 better offensive linemen on one team, but it didn't deliver a Super Bowl championship. And it's no fault of theirs. But it's the one thing I talk about when you're looking at this Cowboys team is offensive line. We got to build our offensive line. We built our offensive line, in this decade, in the decade and a decade before, in this century. And what does it get us? What has it gotten? It's no Super Bowls. When you got a group of guys with excellent coaching like you did, right? Houck was the big difference when Jimmy Johnson came, with that coaching staff and got that offensive line. Kevin Gogan talked about it, where things really started clicking with him. And these guys played together, and they grew up together, and they had an edge together. I look at this offensive line for the Cowboys today, and are there Hall of Famers on this offensive line? I mean, Tyler Smith, he's definitely making his case, but you have a collection of other guys. You've got, Beebe, and you've got Hoffman, and you got Bass, and you got Steele, and you got Guyton, who's coming off a rookie season that you hope obviously will elevate up. These guys aren't household names. They're not going to be on the all-pro list outside of Tyler Smith that you can think of, going into the season. But these guys played well, and they played well together, and they got better and better as the year went on. So when I look at the offensive line of today, this offensive line of today kind of, I don't want to say reminds me, so calm down, because it's not. It just reminds me of the way the past line came up together. And you don't need to have all pros at every position. You just need to have guys that fight for each other, that have an edge when they play. And, and that's what this offensive line, I think that the Cowboys have coming up, can do. So, we're having our draft shows, we're doing our mock drafts, and everyone's kind of talking about it. And, we're going to have to get, I don't want offensive line in the first round. And it's nothing against the Great Wall. It's nothing against, Tyron and Zach and what they did. I mean, it was phenomenal. But all I'm saying is this team, I think, has the line today that can get the job done. We just need an Emmitt Smith. Those guys back there above my head, they didn't have an Emmitt Smith. And a great running back makes a huge difference. And it's that argument that we always have. And when I had Gogan on, you can go back and watch the clip, and it was it the offensive line or was it Emmitt Smith? Who made the other one great? And, Gogan said it's Emmitt Smith. And he gave some examples, and he talked about it. Now, he was in that huddle. He was with that team. So I'll take his word for it. And, this line never really had that, right? They never really had, they had Zeke, but then, some of these guys, were getting older, and all the years are kind of clumping together. So I may I may have messed up some of my running backs. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. But, you know, they didn't have that collective team to help them. I mean, this offensive line was phenomenal. They were dominant. Zach Martin had more Pro Bowls than he did holding penalties in his whole career. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there was a better guard in NFL history. Obviously, Larry Allen is one that comes to mind, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know one better. I don't know one better than Zach Martin. You know, Larry Allen, as good, could argue could be better, but if you are, you're kind of, it's like that, and you're splitting hairs. I mean, there's not many. There's not many that do what a Zach Martin did in his career. And then you talk about Tyron, and some of the injuries kind of took a toll on him. So, but he still had, you know, eight Pro Bowls, and when most times Pro Bowls mattered, and the All Pros, and more importantly, the most important thing is the individual stat is making an All-Decade team. I mean, he made the All-Decade team in the 2010 decade, you know, in that decade. So, and along with Zach Martin. So that's just my thoughts on it, man. Give me your thoughts. Give me your memories of this Great Wall. I mean, to me, it was just the dominance in certain games that offensive line, when they got rolling and you got that running game rolling, I mean, just the absolute mauling. I remember there was one, I don't know who the DB was, but Tyron Smith is absolutely just threw him, I don't know, about 10 yards. I have to go back and look at the videos to try and remember. And then Zach Martin with, you know, going up against some of the greats like an Aaron Donald and others in his era that, you know, Warren Sapp talked about Zach Martin a lot too. But just these guys were just as great as they were, just the dominance that they had of how great they were on the field. When you study the film, you talk about the Hall of Fame defensive tackle, like I said, you know, Warren Sapp. You listen to other guys who played the game at that level, and they talk about the greatness of a Zach Martin. There's just not much better. And then really the unsung hero was Travis Frederick. He was kind of that anchor. He was the captain. He was the one making the calls and doing everything with that offensive line. And you just wonder what would have been if he didn't have that illness and he could have kept going. Maybe these guys would have got their Super Bowl that they deserve. Definitely long overdue for this team to get one. So we'll be talking about it, but just wanted to share my thoughts on the Great Wall. You know, looking at this picture, it's crazy to me that they're all retired. They're all retired, and it may be fitting that Tyron and Zach go into the Hall of Fame together. I mean, that would be a very special weekend. I've never been to the Hall of Fame, and it's been a bucket list. I kick myself that I didn't go when the triplets went. But that would be, if Zach Martin and Tyron going together, that would be something that your boy Mike Tag would have to go and check out. So just wanted to share my thoughts. Wanted to pay my last respects to these guys, man. They gave us so many great memories. It is so unfortunate they couldn't be part of a championship team because the Cowboys not winning the Super Bowl during their careers, they sure the hell didn't have nothing to do with them, if you know what I'm saying. So I appreciate it, man. You guys hit that like, hit the subscribe. You see me hanging in these Cowboys seats from the old Texas Stadium, and these have some great memories. These seats saw some great championship games, and hopefully AT&T this season will be able to bring us some other memories. But there's work to do. There's work to do in the draft. But stay tuned to the Cowboys Cave. Hit that subscribe, like, share. Don't want to miss any of it. Appreciate it. We got a great live show on Thursday night, man. It's going to be rocking. So make sure you guys check out our live show Thursday night. I appreciate it. You guys take care. See you.